Hi, my name's Paul Grogan and welcome to the next in a series of Gaming Rules Podblasts. This is Podblast number 6 and I'm going to be interviewing Jamie Noble Frier, who has his first game that he's designed coming on Kickstarter tomorrow on the 18th of September, which is Hero Master. So I've invited Jamie on to basically talk a little bit about his game, give him a bit of extra publicity and see what you think about it. As always, thank you very much for all of your support. My Patreon page is now what keeps this show going. So if you want to support me, keep the show going, including this podcast and my videos and everything else, then head on over to patreon.com/gaming rules. Even just $1 a month really helps out, grow the show and helps me do more content. So let's get on with the show. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Jamie.
Hi Paul, thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me on with such short notice before the Kickstarter.
Yeah, no problem. So welcome to the show. Now we're going to be here talking about the launch on Kickstarter of Hero Master, which is it's not your first Kickstarter, but it is your first game that you've designed which is going on Kickstarter, and that's going live, at the time of recording, that's going live tomorrow. But this podcast will probably go out tomorrow. So actually, as people are listening to this, it's probably already gone live. Anyway, we're like time travelers, me and you.
That's true. That's true.
Before we get into the game itself, just tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jamie Noble Frier. I'm 34. I live in West Sussex with my wife and my son, who's a year old, and my pet dog Luna, who's a Labrador. I work from home as a board game and book cover artist. So I've worked on other people's board games, but this is going to be my first project where I have illustrated and designed my own game. So cool. Looking forward to it. Okay, so you do artwork for board games. Which ones have you done for those people who haven't been onto your website and looked? Sure, yeah, no problem. Still kind of rave about one of the first ones that I actually worked on, which is Perditions Mouth, and I still work on the expansions for that now, cool. Which is a very different art style to Hero Master, as you've probably noticed. Also a couple of others, Smiths of Winterforge, Hands in the Sea. So quite varied different games, right? Usually with a historic or fantasy kind of background. But I'm also working on like a steampunk one at the moment. I've worked on a couple of sci-fi ones too. Okay. So,
I mean, that's one thing to mention there. You touched on it, and I was going to bring this up actually in the conversation. If we look at Perditions Mouth, the style of artwork for that is fairly gritty.
Yep.
Is that the right word to describe it?
That's right, yeah. And
it's kind of, I don't know how you describe that artwork. Is it like realistic artwork or something? But it's
I guess it's kind of sort of kind of horror fantasy genre. But yeah, I guess it's more realistic. Certainly more realistic than Hero Master. I guess they're kind of polar opposites, right? Yeah,
because Hero Master. This is the thing. If people look at Hero Master and then they look at Perditions Mouth, they're not going to think that that's the same artist.
No. I like to kind of break out every now and then. So this is the whole kind of sort of the story behind it was that I work every day on kind of quite sort of like either gritty or kind of like more realistic artwork, like the stuff you see in Perditions Mouth. Yeah. And sort of book covers of this sort of like likeness, or quite often do portrait work as well for people for kind of like commissions and stuff. Yeah. And after kind of a solid day of kind of breaking my mind over that, I quite often like to have a little breakout in the evening, sort of doing kind of more humorous stuff, like kind of like in a more of a upbeat kind of cartoony style. So that's how kind of like the artwork was born for Hero Master, and it kind of really synced well with an idea that I'd already kind of had a few years before. So yeah, it worked out really well. And you sort of mentioned about the previous Kickstarters. One of them was actually the greetings card campaign for Hero Master. So it was that was a bit of a dummy run for the kind of reception of the artwork and the humour that is now found in this game. So.
Right, so people who've seen your previous Kickstarters will recognise the artwork in Hero Master as the style of artwork that you used, as you say, in the greetings cards.
That's right, yeah, it's evolved a bit. I mean, because I've probably done, since the greetings card campaign, 200 and something more pieces of artwork. So it's kind of been, I'm happy with the way it's kind of ended up. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's definitely reminiscent of that. And I mean, I think the greetings cards were a bit more meta because it features like a dungeon master and stuff, kind of talking about it, and the characters playing the game. Whereas this is much more you are the heroes, so or the anti-heroes.
Or the anti-heroes, yes. So how long have you been doing artwork for board games then?
So around about 8 years. So I started doing book covers. So board games was a little bit later, but I've been kind of doing artwork professionally for about 8 years. I was a restaurant manager, kind of coming out of university, a bit of a loose end, not sure what to do with myself. I'd actually, rather than stay on at art college, kind of didn't want to necessarily conform to kind of doing the kind of Turner Prize stuff. I wanted to draw skeletons and zombies and dragons and things, which they didn't want me to do. So yeah, I kind of got a bit disillusioned and actually went and studied media studies and kind of did film and stuff at university. Okay. Came out, did a couple of years, sort of 4 years as a restaurant manager, and decided that it was great. Really enjoyed it. Actually, made some really good friends and stuff. But I wanted to get back to art, so I ended up actually taking a game design course, which was in video game design, and did sort of lots of concept art to get back into it as well. And managed to land a job with a independent video games company, and then progressed through there to end up sort of being a lead artist in a London-based company. And then sort of at that point, as kind of companies tend to wind down in the video game industry, I kind of took my leave when the one that I was working for started to kind of decline a little bit, and I went freelance and had some clients by that point, so it was really good. Okay,
so tell us about your gaming background then.
So gaming background, I mean, I definitely kind of had a renaissance of gaming in when I joined my first video game company, because those guys were board game crazy. Kind of particularly at lunchtimes, we were playing stuff like King of Tokyo and stuff. You could kind of squeeze into a lunchtime at a push, maybe that overran. Sorry to my producer for that. But in the evenings, we kind of we'd go around to the lead artist's house there. I mean, he's a really cool guy, and I still try and see him every now and then. But we would go and play some kind of longer games around at his house in the evening and stuff, and kind of I got more into it then. But my kind of original love really came from playing Warhammer, I think, the fantasy variety of Warhammer. Prior to Age of Sigmar, which I've not dipped a toe into. Not that I wouldn't, but yeah, it's all new to me. So yeah, and I became really obsessed with kind of the art in that, and I think that's kind of really sort of what spurred me on to kind of doing artwork, kind of in fantasy, because I used to just the amount of times I read the kind of the story parts of the kind of army books and stuff, and I mean I've made so many like armies that I'll never use in Warhammer, kind of like on army lists and stuff. So I just obsessed over it massively, and I think when I then had that renaissance later on and learned that there was deeper games that could last for maybe an hour, I was blown away. And yeah.
So what kind of games would you normally play on a game night?
Well, I was talking about with Leanne, who you know as well, the other day, and kind of we're talking about Aircon that we're both going to go to, and sort of what games we might potentially play there. And I was sort of saying that pretty much anything with a fantasy kind of like theme I'll play, regardless of like kind of its mechanics. I get kind of pretty absorbed into it. But I mean, even then, I sort of like got some favourite Euro games. So I love Power Grid; it's awesome. And I'd say that Mage Knight is probably, again, fantasy, sorry, probably the thing that hits my table the most, just because it's kind of like can be played solo, and also I've got a friend who loves it as well, and we're kind of like sort of
and the last two expansions for Mage Knight were fantastic, obviously.
Do you know what? I've been stalling buying the expansions because I want to kind of basically just drain as much as I can from the base game before I kind of like can't go back. Do you know what I mean?
That's the thing. If a game didn't ever need an expansion, it was Mage Knight. I mean, a lot of people say that Lost Legion, going off at a tangent, a lot of people say Lost Legion completed the game and gave it some extra bits that it kind of needed to round it off, which I thought the base game was just incredible and didn't need anything else. But, on reflection, Lost Legion was great.
Already, that's going to be my next pickup then. That's awesome.
Well, the Mage Knight big box is coming out later this year or next year, which has got everything in.
Do you know what my friend and I, and we don't usually do this, but we actually went halves on Mage Knight, so I'll gift him my half of Mage Knight and just buy the big box.
Get the big box. Get the big box when it comes out. It's nice because I speak to many people, and Mage Knight keeps cropping up in conversation when I'm talking to people about what games. And I was at City of Games in Bristol at the start of this year.
Right.
And I was chatting with this guy, and he knew who I was, and he'd watched some of my videos and everything else. And he was talking to me, and I said, well, what's your favourite game? And he said, Mage Knight. And I said, you're only saying that because I designed the last two expansions. And he went, did you? I was like, Yeah, didn't you know?
You know what, Paul? I didn't know that either.
No?
That's incredible.
So yeah, so this when I was saying the last 2 expansions were fantastic, I was kind of tongue in cheek because I was the designer.
You had
of
me.
them.
It was a good sales pitch.
There you go. A lot of people don't actually realise that, you know, another sort of feather in my cap that I wear is that I designed the last 2 Mage Knight expansions.
Well, I'm a bit starstruck now, Paul. I think I'm taking the interview right here. That's incredible.
Yeah, the game's amazing. You know, there's no I don't class myself as a games designer, even though technically I am. Designing an expansion for an already existing game is a completely different kettle of fish to designing a new game.
What a game to do it for, man! That's a pretty good accolade.
I feel very honoured that that I did it. Anyway, enough about Mage Knight. We can talk about that another time. Yeah. So let's move on to Hero Master. First of all, give me the elevator pitch.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so unlike in Mage Knight, where you would be the super kind of solid. Like heroes of old. You guys are the worst adventurers ever to grace the land. You guys are so inept. You failed in every adventure you've been on. Any parties that have been kind of duped into taking you on would never take you on again. So you're last pick for every party now. So you've kind of ended up in this band of misfits that kind of just graces, well, spends most of their time in the tavern kind of navel gazing. And as you kind of daydream of kind of actually joining one of those worthwhile bands, you've heard about this dragon that's kind of nested nearby, and you're kind of sort of dreaming about kind of joining them, and the dust kind of settles, and they've all disappeared off to fight this dragon, and you kind of are left again, as usual, with the same dopey-faced morons kind of sat around you, which the sort of the flat-footed rogue who can't sneak up on anything, and the barbarian who's enormous and has no spatial awareness, so it's constantly knocking into you. You've got the wizard who won't authorise you to use magic weapons because you haven't learned about it in college and all that sort of stuff.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, it's a game where you're kind of technically, like thematically, you guys are in a party just for pure survival, but you are crawling over each other to get to the rewards of essentially kind of getting the gold from the dragon to flee the party once and for all.
So it's not a cooperative game.
It's not a cooperative game.
It is a competitive game, and the winner is
the person who ends up back at the tavern with the most gold and essentially can buy some friends.
Okay, right. So number of players that it's for? 2
to 4 players. And
playtime?
Lasts about an hour.
Right.
So yeah, kind of between, I'd say kind of like, depending on number of players, kind of like a few more players, it kind of extends it by about a quarter of an hour. But yeah, so between 45 minutes and an hour for kind of 2 players.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you a question here, which you might not want to answer. But a number of games out there with cartoony or amusing artwork and funny flavour text.
Yep.
Are only funny once or twice.
Got it.
What has this game got to keep me coming back to it after that initial joke has not been funny anymore?
I think the difference in this is that it's kind of not just a punchline, because it's not just sort of like a one-liner. These are kind of little kind of nostalgia, and I think this kind of comes back from me talking about Warhammer and reading kind of the stories in there and stuff. But they're little snippets of stories of these kind of poor guys' lives that are doomed to be the worst adventurers. So kind of rather than sort of like it's like more of a kind of sort of like these kind of snippets that you're kind of learning about them and stuff. And like for me with those things, I tend to read them and enjoy them kind of more and more. Like watching your favourite TV series, like you watch it 3 or 4 times and you're still enjoying it, sort of thing. It's the same sort of thing because you feel like you get to know those characters and stuff. But also on top of that, I think kind of like it's not necessarily just the flavour text in the game, but kind of like the artwork represents the action that you're taking on different kind of your other players that you're playing against. Yeah. And that's what kind of sparks the banter and stuff. And I think that a lot of the humour actually is player driven because you're taking on these roles. And one of the things that's kind of been said in reviews is that you really play to the character's strengths and stuff. And they play quite differently. So kind of the barbarian is huge and raging, lots of stuff, and kind of like getting in everybody's way. And the wizard is kind of sort of like just grumbly and stopping people from doing stuff. And kind of, like if they don't get out of the way, then it's collateral damage, fireball time. Right. So it's kind of, so those people who have played those kind of RPGs and stuff before, where they've had like those moments in kind of Dungeons and Dragons parties and stuff where everything just goes wrong, they're kind of getting that nostalgic feel that kind of they'll be chuckling each time, like, oh god, that sneaky rogue, kind of sort of like those moments. And I think that's kind of what I saw, particularly when I took it to conventions that and demos and stuff, where people would start to there's a lot of banter around the table, and I think that's a key thing.
So one thing I read about the game is that somebody, I think, made a comment that there's more depth to the game than you might imagine for a game with this style of artwork.
Yeah, you're right. I think there's been a couple of reviews that kind of like, it's kind of more strategy than meets the eye,
Right.
and I think because as you say, kind of with the cartoony artwork and the humour and what have you and stuff, because of the nature of the game, the theme of the game, I didn't feel that my kind of usual gritty artwork would fit. I mean, sort of
Right.
that maybe in some kind of world where I kind of did like a sort of parody of that, there might be, but I felt that kind of sort of there was the need for sort of like kind of that light-hearted kind of sort of like slapstick type of stuff over the top. So that's why kind of I've gone with that style for this particular game. Now the fact that kind of maybe that doesn't reflect the depth inside it, I would kind of I'm pleased that it's kind of like surprisingly exciting, because I know that sort of people are kind of like, oh, this is,
Right.
you can start to kind of like get into the game and sort of like develop some strategies and stuff. So in a way, maybe it's kind of it's quite accessible to people that will pick up and then sort of start to learn things, because you can pick it up and play it and just slap down cards and kind of see what happens. But if you actually kind of get a little bit of kind of understanding of what's going on and take your time and kind of there's a lot of kind of different combinations of strategies you can do and lure people out and bluffing and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think sort of speaking to someone the other day about kind of the fact that I think audiences now expect a little bit more that there can be kind of more adult friendly cartoons like Simpsons, South Park, all that sort of stuff. So I think people are prepared now to take stuff with a cartoon vibe. And so
if anybody goes to the campaign after listening to this podcast, looks at it and just thinks, oh no, this is just some light and fluffy, silly throwaway card game with comedic artwork and funny one-liners, look deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And check out a couple of videos, because you'll see kind of sort of when, especially those kind of like people who are talking about that click moment where it's like, kind of moment. So yeah, it's fun to watch when you see people play it, and especially when I kind of ran demos for reviewers and stuff in over Tabletop Simulator and various different things. So yeah.
Cool. So a number of people go on Kickstarter with games that are not completely finished, which is totally all right, because Kickstarter is like, look, I've got this idea of a game. Here's the work I've done so far, and with your help, I'll be able to finish it. Your game isn't that. Your game is done. Is that right?
That's right. It is. The core game is finished. The testing's done. The art is all done for it, and that's the luxury of being my own kind of master of my own destiny, in the fact that I could both design it and illustrate the game myself, which I could spend all the time. So I rather than, because I was going to put this game out in May, and actually pushed it back till now we're in September, because I wanted to make sure everything was sorted and kind of ready to go with it and stuff. So that gave me the time then to kind of like finish off all the artwork and stuff, not rush things, take my time, kind of do a bit more testing, kind of actually develop some kind of ideas for stretch goals, which maybe kind of impact the game in a way as well. But I think the only thing that would need to be done is if we unlock certain stretch goals, artwork for that. Now, for me, kind of like, again, sort of like, I don't have anyone to rely on. It's just a case of just getting on and doing the artwork. And plus the fact, I've having done 250 cards in this style, I'm fairly kind of sort of like, confident to get things moving quite quickly with artwork for it. So yeah.
Cool. So one of my Patreon supporters, Leanne, commented that she was lucky enough to have some background input on the game, and made a point of saying that during the development process you were very open to criticism. So can you tell us a little bit about the development process that you've been through over the last, 6 months, 9 months, or how long has the game been in development?
Yeah, so I mean, actually in development, as I say, kind of a long time ago when I started playing board games with those guys at the indie studio, that we've started to come up with ideas for things, and everyone's got an idea, right? Kind of like it's nothing until it's something, and so nothing really kind of materialised until probably 2.5-ish years ago, and sort of I started to kind of like do a bit more work on board games, and kind of like I figured that because I was an illustrator and I could maybe design this if I kind of put my mind to it, that I could just kind of do the whole thing myself. So kind of, that was kind of a turning point about 2.5 years ago. So during that time, it's changed loads, and I'd probably say that kind of like, despite it kind of the process starting that long ago, I'd say in its current form, its final form, it's probably only been this way for 9 months, I reckon. That kind of sort of like where it hasn't as a sort of there's so many different kind of changes, like this weird Agricola scoring system at one point and stuff which is binned off, and yeah, so lots of different kind of changes until streamline. Things like kind of like when we first play tested it, like, oh, this will probably work with 3 or 4 players, but having play tested with 2, then you play it with 4 players and it doesn't work at all. So then kind of like, okay, well, what can we kind of structure in to make this work and stuff, and that's kind of where the party leader kind of mechanic came from, which I'm sure you'll see in kind of in videos and what have you kind of about the game. So
okay. Cool. So yeah, very open to suggestions and criticism during the development process, and you're happy with the end result?
Yeah, totally. And sorry, just a reference. Of course, very happy. Going back to the game right now. You mentioned about Leanne and stuff, and I kind of went off on a tangent. She's amazing. So are the rest of the guys at the Board Game Trading and Chat UK. Not only the admins and the mods and stuff, but actually the whole community there is just incredible. They're such a friendly bunch. It's my kind of online home most of the time, as is Martin Poole from Board Game Exposure. Those guys have just been incredibly supportive of what I'm trying to do. So massive thanks to them. Leanne definitely gave me some kind of help on the ideas for components and stuff to kind of reduce maybe the kind of like the overall cost for me, to then bring the cost down for people, because she was saying, kind of like families who want to kind of like, people who are of the age of playing board games tend to have their own families and stuff, and financial commitments and all that sort of stuff. But it means that kind of they have a budget for board games. So as much as I wanted to kind of put the world and its dog in the board game that I'm trying to sell, it just wasn't plausible. It wasn't a good idea. So she was great in the fact that she kind of almost managed my expectations a bit of like
did a bit of a reality check and reined a few ideas back in order to bring the cost down, in order to make the game more. As you say, if you go on to Kickstarter and this game is £45, whatever, as opposed to £25, I don't know what is going to be
the core game's on for £29. But I think it's a steal in my opinion, because I mean, particularly when the stretch goals kick in, I think it would be incredible. But kind of like as it is, like you're kind of getting a lot of bang for your buck. I really wanted to kind of like trim the price down as much as possible. The main reason for that is because it's my first board game. It's not my first Kickstarter, but my first board game. I want people to trust me and sort of get me and all that sort of stuff. So I don't want them to have to do that and pay through the nose for it. So it's that was my kind of key plan on the pricing side.
Excellent. Right. So let's wrap things up there. The game is going on Kickstarter, as I say, tomorrow at the time of recording. So time of recording is the 17th of September. So 18th of September 2018, it's going to go live on Kickstarter. Whenabouts is it going to go live?
So 12 p.m. British Summer Time. So that would be 7 a.m. Eastern Time.
Yeah.
That's as far as I can go working out those in my head. So yes, please come and find me on Kickstarter. Ask me questions. I've got a Facebook group. You're very welcome to come and join. If you search for Hero Master Game in Facebook. But yeah, I'm very open to kind of talking about it and stuff. It's exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. Well, good luck with it. We probably won't speak to you for the next month because I know how busy it can be running a Kickstarter campaign. You'll just be up all night replying to comments and people complaining about shipping costs, and then there'll be one guy who says, "Oh, your game's completely broken, and why don't you do this? Like introduce an Agricola scoring mechanism, for example."
Exactly. Yeah, go back to that. Yeah, roll back. If I go full Shia LaBeouf, then that things have gone wrong, right?
Excellent. So, anything else you want to add?
No, I really, really appreciate you kind of talking to me today, Paul. Thanks so much. And my God, you are awesome for doing the expansions to Mage Knight. That's incredible.
Well,
that's something I've learned.
If you play them and you like them, then great. If you play them and you don't like them, don't tell me.
Okay, I'll make sure I do. Cool. Yeah. Thanks very much, Paul.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye. So, there we go. Quick interview with Jamie about Hero Master. If you are interested, go and check it out on Kickstarter and see what you think about it. Thanks again to all of my Patreon supporters that make this kind of content possible. And as I mentioned at the start, if you do want to support the show, then please head over to patreon.com/gaming rules. And as I say, even just $1 a month really does help. So until next time, take care and thanks for listening.